Welcome to Wild Questions. I'm Sabbath Kapahu, and this is the moment we take each week to have the conversations we know are important, but we don't always talk about. This is about the stories that matter behind the questions we ask. I'm joined by my friend, colleague, and CEO of Wild Leaders, Dr. Rob McKenna. Today, we're going to talk about and ask questions about motivation, learning, deeper learning that eventually ferments into wisdom takes time and intention. If just getting it done is a primary goal, the cycles of mindless repetitions and failures will likely continue. Dr. McKenna, the question I'm asking today is, how do I get motivated to learn?
That is a big question, Sabbath. That is a big question. Wow, I love this topic, and I love it that we're having this conversation today. As you know, you've seen me get excited about this. The whole space of learning is fascinating because there's been an assumption that that all of us learn the same way. So if you think about all the research that's gone into even things related to growth mindset, kind of the way that I think about my world in terms of Carol Dweck's work, and some people I love Carol Dweck's work, but I think sometimes that drives us into this way of thinking that says that there is one pathway for learning, and so there's one sort of set of rules for how it works. And first of all, with that quote, like this is something that is from my next book, and it was so often we just sort of make attempts and we start to try to do things as opposed to thinking about over the long haul, how do we understand how to actually get better at things that are going on in our lives, and who doesn't want to understand their own motivations. But I watched this documentary. I don't know if it's a documentary, but it was amazing. So let me set the stage for this for just a second. So I already mentioned this, that even things like learning agility, which is a very popular organizational topic, has been talked about a lot, but very few people are talking about the reality that we are agile in different ways. I always think of a football team. I don't know why that's what comes to mind, but if you were an NFL coach, you know that people aren't agile. And agility is about moving well, that they aren't agile in the same ways. So some people are better with their hands, like some linemen. Some linemen are better with their feet. Some people are faster. Some people are quicker. And so what moving well looks different. And in the same way, it's like, why wouldn't we apply that and think about, hey, would that apply to my motivations to actually learn, or my motivations to get better at something? Because isn't that what learning is really about? So a lot of the research that we did was based on all this amazing work that's out there on learning agility, on learning and how people process and develop new skills and new expertise. And one of the things that we found was that we were driven by unique learning motivators, is what we call them. In other words, that you and I have some crossover, I know, because we've actually used an assessment, the motivational learning inventory, to understand that. But that you and I are motivated by different things, not only to learn, but to get better at our jobs, and to execute well. And so we know that's true. Like that's the first big thing, is like we are motivated by different things. And I'm not talking about whether you are better with auditory or visual. That's different. I'm talking about the actual psychological motivators for me to step up my game and to get better at something.
I have this look on my face because it's just so amazing to when you understand my own personal motivations, what drives me, and what I literally will like put at the bottom of my list
Uh-huh.
versus what comes next and where I set that priority. It's
Isn't it nuts? It's like
yeah.
and it's affecting. And the problem, I mean, you could get into the whole love languages movement around, like we all speak different love languages.
Yeah.
When I mow the lawn, you and I know that there's 6 learning motivators, and my top one is influencer. So I am motivated when it's not about being an influencer the way we talk about it today. Like when we created this, it's about, I'm motivated by my influence on other people about things that matter to me. So when I mow the lawn, this sounds ridiculous to someone who's not motivated this way, but for me, it makes sense. When I mow the lawn, I think about my family using the lawn. And so I'm motivated to actually have a great lawn and to learn better how to mow my lawn better and better, to have because I think about them actually sitting on a blanket on the lawn or playing cornhole or whatever. And my wife is not motivated by that. So it's us understanding each other's motivations is actually how we talk to each other has been important, because I'm like, even though I may not get her because I'm not motivated by the same things, if I understood her better, then I might actually communicate in ways that would be motivating to her, because who doesn't want to have their spouse do certain things better, and she would want the same from me, of course. And so but I this is what I wanted to tell you about is I watched this thing about Luke Longley, who if people are old enough when we're around, who played for the Chicago Bulls and was on 3 of the Michael Jordan championship teams. And I saw this, I was actually watching this last night, and I was fascinated because it was such an incredible example of the reality that it's not just about getting good at things. That so often we think it's just practice, that we think it's about that. And what we found was that getting better at things is affected by my unique motivations. So here's what he said, Sabbath. It blew me away, because I was just one more example. I want every team out there to sort of grab onto this and say, like, what if we understood our unique motivations to perform? Because performance is connected into my increasing competence. And so what he said was this: when he was recruited into the NBA, and first of all, he wasn't a very driven basketball player. He wasn't that gifted. He was, I think, 7'2", so he was really tall, but he had some fundamental skills. He did not have a killer instinct. He describes himself that way. Kind of a happy-go-lucky kind of person. But he gets recruited into the NBA, and he's the 7th round draft pick. I forget in what year that was. He had a mullet, so that tells you something, like an old school mullet. And so he gets drafted in the NBA, and he gets drafted by the Minnesota Timberwolves. And the Timberwolves were not very good, but that wasn't the problem. The problem was that this was a team that did not work together.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no sense of encouraging one another. There was no sense of camaraderie. There wasn't an emphasis on passing or even an affirmation when someone did something well. There just was no sense of team that was going on. And how many of us have worked on teams like that? But here's the point: is that he just was miserable. It wasn't just that he moved from Australia to Minneapolis. He didn't understand the cold weather, but he was miserable. He goes to the Bulls. So he goes to the Chicago Bulls, and Jordan is there. By the way, another side note is he even describes this. He's like, I didn't really like Michael Jordan. I think even to this day, I'm not sure he would say he was. I don't know if Jordan would even care. But here's what was fascinating: when he got to the Bulls, he found a team. So it was a team that encouraged one another. And I don't want us to dismiss this as saying everybody should create a great team. That's not my point. My point is this: because Luke Longley said some things in that documentary where he talked about this reality. He realized, I'm not motivated to win, unless what he found was that when he won, he was speaking the currency of the people he cared about.
Mm-hmm.
So I guarantee if he used the motivational learning inventory, he would score high on the connector. So this is a person who won 3 NBA titles, and was not motivated by a killer instinct, but motivated because the currency of relationships was what mattered to him. So if he won for his teammates. You talk to Michael Jordan, and that's not his motivations to learn and get better. And I would guarantee, and so even when they described him, they described how he created this ease relationally. I've heard Steve Kerr talked about this. on the team that was important in his presence that he doesn't even get credit for. I don't even think, as I was hearing Michael Jordan's comments, he fully understood. But
Mm.
but if Luke Longley, it took him too long to discover that what motivated him to excel, to become more and more competent as a professional basketball player, was not getting better at basketball. Do you hear me, Sabbath? It was like, and that is, there's such depth in that, and understanding that that's not true for everybody. So this is not about just create awesome teams. This is
Right.
about the reality that if you don't, and you have people who are influenced by connection, they will not get better, and they will actually potentially underperform.
Yeah.
So there are 6 different learning motivators, and I know you and I know a lot about what motivates us, as a part of what we do to learn and perform and increasing our competence. But I guess what I would want to encourage in people is just to realize that different people on your team are motivated to get better at things, that's learning, in different ways.
So really what I hear you saying is the answer to the question that we're asking, how do I get motivated to learn, begins with knowing what you're motivated by first. Learning about ourselves and how we are motivated and how we function on the team, not even how we're going to do our job. I hear you saying it's not even about how competent we are to do something specific. It's about how am I going to function with the other people that have to help me get this job done.
Exactly. That's
Wow.
exactly right. And I mean, I think it also relates to more than just competence. It also relates to risk taking
Mm,
and courage. It's like there's just people will be sort of floundering in a lack of motivation when when you're not able to tap in or have an environment that is connected into what it is that motivates them psychologically to do it. So like even thinking about something as simple as this. This is so ridiculous. I love guitar. I'm a decent guitarist. Um, I am not that motivated to develop deeper expertise playing the guitar unless I have an upcoming gig. I don't have any gigs lately. I just haven't had time to continue to play guitar. When I have a meeting to do something and I it's necessary for me to perform into that meeting so that other people have a good experience. You've seen this with me. That's when I step up my game.
yeah.
I learn new skills. And so yeah.
And I'm similar, so I get that. But I was just thinking as I heard you talk, like to me that makes sense. Isn't that how everybody operates? But no, that is not how everybody operates. That is like yeah. I'm very close with somebody who operates at the same level because they're motivated by specific things and goals and outcomes, and that is what motivates them. So if something's coming up, if it doesn't align with that specific goal, it doesn't matter. It's not going to motivate them to
Yeah.
change.
Well, and Claire on our team, when we use the motivational learning inventory, she profiles really high on the stabilizer.
Yeah.
So like her whole motivation is if I can help you be better and through providing that stability, that, Claire,
Yeah.
right? How powerful. And those
Oh,
the 6
I'm
of
so
them are seeker, strategist, connector, influencer, stabilizer, and receptor. Those are the 6 motivational profiles. We call them learning motivators. So
I think we have to do another like follow-up wild questions about like how do I know what my motivations are.
that'd be cool. I'd love it. Love for us to do that.
Okay, as we wrap up this wild questions, I'm going to ask a question from our deck if I can get it open. And so that we can all continue on our developmental journey as we learn about how to get motivated to learn and give ourselves permission to ask questions that we might not have an answer to right away, but um, understand the importance of the question. And it is, I just pulled it at random. What do you feel called to sacrifice today that may serve others? And with that, we will see you guys next time. Thanks, Dr. McKenna.
Thanks, Sabbath.